Jungkook and you both had finished eating, and Jungkook glanced at Taehyung, who gave him a thumbs up for encouragement. For some reason, his face looked more punchable when he did that. Jungkook was nervous, but he was hoping. You couldn't tell this evening had gone perfectly so far. He had the ring in his suit pocket so that it wasn't noticeable to you. You both joked with each other as you talked. It was so easy for him to speak to you even when he is nervous to the point that he is shaking. I have left a mark on you, John, a mark you can't replace. Even if we don't work out, you will always look for me in every girl you meet. You muttered proudly with a big grin plastered on your face. Possibly, he raised his eyebrow with a grin. You knows it too. A few moments had passed and he spoke. Come here, stand up with me, he assured you suddenly before you both stood next to the seats. Why are we standing? You questioned nervously. You didn't like people staring at you. You are right. You have left a mark on me. You have changed me. You make me a better man, and I know you will make me a better father. I want you to be in my life forever because you have created a hole in my heart that only you can fill. He said proudly. He wasn't ashamed of people hearing that how much he loved you. I love you, Ryan. I want to grow old with you. I want you to be on my bedside when I'm dying. I want to look at you and told you that we made it when we are old and wrinkly. He rambled with a slight smile. I, Jungkook John, no longer the monster which my father created me to be, and that's because of you. You took my trauma and turned it into hope, hope for a better life. He think you finally understood at that moment what he was about to do. It's as simple as the fact that I love you and I want to propose properly. He mumbled as he got on one knee. Your face became shocked as he began to kneel down. Ryan Diaz, will you marry? He muttered, glancing down at the ring before a loud ringing sound flooded his ear. It was the sound of a gunshot that had created in the background. He could hear people screaming and heavy footsteps as if they were running out of the restaurant. He looked back up at you, who was as white as a ghost. All the color had left your face. His heart stopped when he watched you putting your hand up to your chest where the blood was seeping out of. No, no, he said with his face just as white as yours. No, 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 he muttered as he cradled you in his arms, trying desperately to stop the bleeding. You are okay, you will be okay, he mumbled as his eyes began to well with tears. You just stared at him before putting your hand over his that was on your chest. It's okay, you uttered quietly. It's okay. You were the one who reassuring him. No, no, no. He finally let the tears fall. I love you, please don't leave me. I love you too. You blurted out before blood began to dribble out of your mouth. It was supposed to be forever. He began to sob. This wasn't fair. This was over forever. You smiled weakly as a tear rolled down your face. I love you, I'll be okay. You nodded as a tear ran down your cheek. By the way, Taeyong already called the ambulance. You was struggling to breathe as you began to lose a lot of blood. Please don't go. He sobbed uncontrollably as you lay in his arms, dying. I would if I could. You smiled slightly. Save our baby, you whispered softly, stroking away his tears with your free hand. You need someone to love you, and I know our son will do it. You warned him. No, please, please, he begged you, but he knew it was out of your control. I'm not afraid to die. I'm only afraid that I'll never see you again. You whimpered quietly, almost whispering. I love you, you uttered as the life left your eyes as your hand fell from his cheek. Jungkook sobbed as he held you in his arms, covered in your blood, your forehead against his. Jungkook held your head and neck up with his hand as his free one held the wound in your chest. I can't do this without you. I just can't. Please. He sobbed frantically as Taeyong and Ice began to cry. Jungkook screamed in pain as he placed his forehead on yours, rocking you in his arms. I'm sorry, he gasped, struggling for air due to his sobs. Suddenly, the doctors ran in. Boss, you need to give her to us so we can save the baby. We need to do an immediate surgery, he assured. He was too distraught to make any decisions. She is gone, he shouted, and he refused to let you go. Let her go, it's what she wanted. Taeyong grabbed his shoulder, reassuring him. It was supposed to be me, he repeated as he sobbed, struggling to his feet. Tears streamed down Taeyong's face as he pulled him into his arms. Jungkook couldn't believe you were gone now. Every single bone in his body ached for you. The doctors had to do an emergency C-section to save the baby. Jungkook cried out in pain as Taeyong held him in his arms. Ice had collapsed onto the ground a while ago. But moments later, Jungkook heard a baby cry. It's a miracle, he's alive. He heard the doctor say with a heavy heart as he handed him his baby. He held the baby in his arms. His eyes became teary when he saw the baby's features. He resembles a lot more like you. Small nose, pink lips, almond-shaped eyes. Jungkook smiled slightly and pecked baby's forehead lovingly. Dada won't let anyone hurt you, no one, he promised as he cried in his arms. I'm here, we have each other. He hushed the baby while tears were still streaming down his own face. Jungkook was covered in blood, which he is assuming wasn't good for the baby. Hold him, he mumbled, handing him to Taeyong. Suddenly his tears stopped as his whole body filled with rage, a level of anger that he had never reached before. He walked over to the body of the man as he searched for any gang symbol. That's when he found it. Felix gang symbol, tattooed on the man's arm. Then Jungkook started screaming only in pain and fury. Jungkook stood in the bathroom as he looked at himself in the mirror. He had blood all over him, on his face, on his clothes, in his hair. Who even knows how blood got there? Jungkook glanced down at his hands that hadn't stopped shaking since he held your cold, lifeless body in his arms. They were covered in blood. He turned on the water and began to wash his hands. His eyes welled up with tears again as he watched the blood slowly come out of his skin. It was supposed to be him. The thought kept occurring, making it hard to concentrate on anything. Jungkook was so tired of crying. He wanted to break something or hit someone, but he had no energy, so all he All he could do is cry. He gripped the sink in anger as he remembered your face. I'm afraid I'll never see you again. Your voice rang through his head, making him instantly punch the mirror to distract himself from his thoughts. It shattered into a million pieces as he took deep breath, trying to calm himself down. His hand began to bleed, at least it was his own blood this time. He went into the kitchen to get the first aid before he did anything else. He couldn't care about the glass in his hand, but he knew he had to take care of it if he wanted to hold his son. Jungkook wrapped it up after taking out the glass. He strolled into the sitting room where Taehyung was sitting while holding Suho. Without even being told, Taehyung handed Suho over to him. You do realize we have to have a funeral for her? Taehyung blurted out. I'm not going. You can hold it for her, but I won't be going, he said with a monotone voice. But you have to, Taehyung demanded. I'm not going, end of discussion. He growled at him, forgetting he was holding his child. Look what you did, Jungkook shouted at Taehyung before hushing Suho back to sleep. Taehyung stormed out while making sure to be quiet. Promise that I won't be like my father. I will be better for you, he whispered before kissing Suho's forehead. I will not let my pride or ego get in the way like it did with your mother. I will care for you as best as I can, he reassured Suho, who was asleep in his arms. Jungkook, you can't skip her funeral, Taeyong shouted frustratedly. There's only two reasons I'm breathing right now, our baby and to carry on the memory of YN. Her funeral will push me over the edge. If I go to that funeral and see the love of my life's body in that casket, I will be pushed over the edge. He spat angrily through his gritted teeth. Taeyong glanced at him with watery eyes while nodding. I didn't live up to my name before, but I can assure you now that I'm as cold as ice, he replied before walking out. Find Felix, he roared through the halls. Fucking find him. He pinched the bridge of his nose stressfully as he sat on the couch. He could hear Suho's crying from the other room. He was always crying. He stood up and walked over to the door of the next room. He placed his hand on the doorknob hesitantly. He should have known being a single father would be harder than he thought. He twisted the door handle and walked in, the floor creaking under his feet while he entered the room and the light peeking into the room from the door being open. Hey, little champ, what's wrong, huh? He asked him quietly as he held him in his arms. He just continued to cry. Jungkook held him in his arms as he sat on the chair. You miss Mama, right? Yeah, me too. He sighed as he rocked Suho gently. He slowly began to calm down as he lay in his arms. I think it's time for a bottle, he mumbled, brushing his thumb against his tiny soft cheek. Jungkook grabbed the bottle he had prepared earlier in the evening for when he woke up. Are you going to drink this all for me? Jungkook questioned before testing the heat of the milk on his arm. Here you go. He hushed him as Jungkook fed him the bottle. His sigh filled the room. The house was quiet. None of them could talk to each other without becoming angry. Suho fell asleep not long after the bottle, but just as he placed him in the crib, he began to cry again. Okay, looks like you're sleeping in my bed tonight, he muttered, bringing him into the bed. Jungkook placed Suho on the bed gently before he lay next to him. He wasn't much bigger than his hand. He lay on your side of the bed, not even making a dent in the mattress due to his light weight. Jungkook was feeling numb. He can't feel anything inside of him. It's like he is hollow, made of only skin and bone. It's exactly what he felt like before you, but now it's intensified. The anger Jungkook felt can't be slowly dissolved like it used to. No matter how much he scream or punch, now he will never stop being angry. Jungkook wasn't even sure who he was more angry at, himself for letting you die or you for leaving him. It's fucking selfish that he is angry at you, but he knew how much he needed you. Jungkook broke away from his thoughts when he heard a tiny snores. A slight smile was plastered on his lips without even realizing it. Maybe Suho is his hope of being saved. After 2 months of your death, Jungkook destroyed whole Felix Mafia. He killed Felix brutally without showing mercy. The beast inside him made him crazy after your death. He didn't even show mercy to Felix's sister, Nina, who was innocent all the time, but he killed her too. Jungkook erased the existence of Felix from the world. Jungkook attacked on his whole empire alone. Obviously, he get injured too, but he never showed any mercy to anyone. After killing Felix Mafia, Jungkook went in coma for almost 7 days due to the heavy head injuries, and behind all this, Taeyong and Ice taking care of Suho. Taeyong have been struggling to get out of bed lately. He thinks it's the fact that your 4-year anniversary is approaching quite quickly and most of us still haven't finished grieving, especially Jungkook. Jungkook went on a rampage for about 2 years after you died, just killing anything or anyone that pissed him off, except for Suho, obviously. He had went from barely getting out of bed to killing everyone, including the police force and innocent people who he thought was guilty. But then, almost 2 years ago, around this time, he just suddenly stopped. Personally, Taeyong don't think he has the energy anymore to kill people, not to mention Suho, who can now have a full conversation. A short one, but a conversation nonetheless. Little does Suho know today is his mother's 4-year death anniversary. Taeyong still feels like Ice and he are walking on eggshells around Jungkook. They both are always careful not to mention your name just in case Jungkook snaps. Taeyong walked into the sitting room where he saw the photo flipped over facing the coffee stand. He sighed as he looked at it. It was a photo of Jungkook and you. Jungkook doesn't have the strength to throw the photos around the house away, so instead he just flipped it over. Taeyong assumes it so that when he is doing things in the house, he is not reminded of you. Taehyung knows the guilt is tearing him up inside because he's always saying it should have been him, but he know you would rather yourself die than Jungkook. You're always been too selfless. Suho suddenly burst through the doors. Taehyung, Taehyungi uncle, look what I found. He shouted happily as his little legs ran as fast as they could over to Taehyung. He handed him a photo. Where did you get this, buddy? He asked curiously, holding the photo of you and Taeyang. It was on the floor, he mumbled as he pointed at the wooden floor. It probably fell from the wall, he muttered to himself. Taeyangi uncle, can I have a cookie please? Suho cheered while jumping before falling to the ground. He began to cry as he looked at his cut elbow. It's okay, let's go get your dada. Taeyang grumbled as he lifted Suho into his arms. But Dada is working and he said we are not allowed in. Suho pouted. I think we can go in just this one. Taehyung said, placing his finger over his lips to imply it was a secret. Okay, Suho whimpered. Taehyung was downstairs taking care of Suho, so Jungkook had a few minutes at most to spend alone with his thoughts. He traveled from his office to his bedroom. Your bedroom. Jungkook lay on the bed, letting out a deep sigh as he gazed at loose cover on the bed. The tips of his fingers ran along the bed where you once lay next to him. It felt like a lifetime ago that he had saw your face or heard your voice, your real voice. He is constantly terrified that he is going to forget you. As the years go by, he is forgetting the way your touch sends electricity through his body like it had never been touched before, or maybe it's the fact that he knows your smile is slowly fading away from his memory. There's also a consistent dull ache in his chest because he longed for you, longing to kiss your lips and say I love you one last time. Jungkook slipped his phone out of his pocket and dialed a number. They didn't answer, but their voicemail did. Hey, it's fine. Leave a message after the beep and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Have a great day. Hearing their voice was like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. All his stress instantly melted away as he heard your voice. Hey love, it's Jungkook. It's been a while since I have done this. He muttered into the phone. He glanced at the floor while he tried to control his breathing. It's 4 years today. He finally blurted out, his eyes stinging from the tears that were beginning to well up. I usually limit myself to hearing this once a week so that I don't ever do it because I know it's not healthy and I have already called this week. But I said fuck it due to the fact you've been gone 4 years ago now. He bit your lip as he tried desperately to hold back the tears. I can't fucking do it, love. I can't. He sobbed, finally letting himself break down. Everything fucking hurts, and I haven't even touched my journal in months. I know if I open it and see how happy I was, I would try to join where you are now. He uttered, ashamed as tears rolled down his cheek. I'm sorry, I broke my promise. I have to carry that guilt around with me every day. He released a sob at the end of his sentence. The guilt is so heavy that sometimes I feel like I can't breathe because of it. He whimpered, my heart aches for you every day. Sometimes I wonder if you even saved my life by dying because now I'm miserable all the time. Everyone kept telling me that I would feel better and the time would heal the hole in my heart that you left, but if I'm being honest, I think it's only gotten deeper. He explained, With a heavy heart, letting out his bottled grief, he calmed himself down as best as he could. But on the bright side is Suho is going turn 4 tomorrow. He mumbled. He saw a photo of you the other day and he recognized you. I have never been prouder yet, so creeped out, he said with his tone becoming more happier than previously. He swallowed the lump in his throat and stared at the ground. But yeah, I just called to let you know how we were doing. I love you, love. I'm still in love with you, and I can't wait for the day I'm with you again. His lips quivered as he spoke. He hung up. He reached out for your pillow that hadn't been used since the night you died. He adjusted it, realizing it was crooked, and suddenly a corner of your diary peeked out at him from underneath it. Maids changed the sheet so they would have found it and just put it back where it was after they were finished, assuming he knew that it was there. He searched everywhere, tore your journal after you died, and the one place he didn't look, he felt like punching himself. His fingers traced the cover of it. This was one of the last things she touched. It's weird how special the little thing became. He don't have the energy to read this tonight. And just as he thought that, Taeyong and Suho came into the room. Suho had tears rolling down his cheeks as his bottom lip was in a pout. He was staring at his cut elbow. Oh, we can leave you alone, Taeyong uttered, noticing what he was holding. No, I want Dada, Suho shouted, screaming in Taeyong's arms. It's okay, give him to me. He sighed, taking Suho in his arms. Taeyong walked out respectively and shut the door behind him. What happened, champ? He hushed Suho, who was crying. I fall, he blubbered with snot coming out of his nose. Jungkook took the tissue from nightstand and wiped his nose. Does it hurt? He asked curiously. No, Suho stated bluntly. Jungkook smiled, letting out a small chuckle. So, why are you crying, buddy? He questioned. I don't like it, he muttered, pointing to his blood. Oh, Jungkook nodded with a light tone, taking the first aid out of his nightstand. I have this all over the house. He smiled. Why? Suho asked. I used to get a lot of OVs too, so I put one of these in every room. Jungkook whispered, cutting the plaster and placing it on his elbow. Jungkook sat Suho on his lap as he played with the strings of Jungkook's hoodie. All better? Suho smiled with the tears still rolling down his cheeks. Jungkook grinned, wiping the tears with the thumb. He kissed Suho's forehead. Tomorrow you are turning 4, he shouted excitedly. Suho let out a giggle as he stood up, lifting Suho in the air. 4? He repeated, holding up his fingers. Jungkook decided to make his birthday one day after his mother's death date so that he could have the day all to himself. You are going to be a big boy, he said happily, throwing him back onto the bed. Suho laid on his chest, giggling now. He is top of Jungkook. Suho laughed uncontrollably as he tried to sit back up normally on the bed, but Jungkook didn't let him. Suho let out a yawn before rubbing his eye. I see, someone is tired, he asked curiously with one eyebrow raised. No, I want to play, he said, starting to throw a tantrum. Hey, you're a big boy, no more tantrums, he warned him, putting on his strict voice. I just want to play with you, he pouted. We can play all day tomorrow, he assured him, seeing his eyes immediately light up. Promise? He asked happily. Promise, he muttered. Okay, Suho pouted again but wasn't crying any longer. Let's go, kiddo. He grabbed his hand. Jungkook took him to his bedroom and he climbed into his bed. Read this one, he shouted with a big smile plastered on his face. His light, slightly curly brown hair was all messy and his big brown eyes sparkled with happiness. There was so much of you in him, it was almost painful. Jungkook began to read the book. As he reached halfway through, Jungkook heard little snores coming from his bed. Jungkook glanced over to see Suho knocked out. He placed his hand on Suho's chest just to feel his heart beat. It gave him peace of mind knowing he was still beating. I love you, Suho. I love you so much, champ. Jungkook whispered as he stood at his door. Jungkook quietly walked into his room.